Hi Jen.
Hello.
Welcome to the Franchise Marketing Show.
Thank you. Chucked me on.
It's not like I twisted your arm or anything. So for anyone who doesn't know who you are, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I run mental health support for franchisors, franchisees. So I do mental health first aid training, so that's certified, accredited courses, but also conference talks, workshops, monthly support, basically all franchise wellbeing management. In a nutshell.
In a nutshell. So let's look at, before we talk about the mental health stuff, let's talk about the franchise aspect. How did you get into franchising?
Like a lot of people, by accident. So it was my first ever job out of uni. I started a marketing role for a franchise. So we did, I ended up doing like operations, recruitment, onboarding, everything. There was only 2 of us for a network of about 50.
Wow.
And then I've just not left it. So I've since then worked for franchisees, like with local marketing, worked with the BFA, and then it was there that I decided to found this business, Cinder.
Okay, so what was it about the mental health aspect in particular that you felt like there was a gap in the industry that you wanted to fill that?
So it was when I was at the BFA, it was during lockdown, so really strange time for everybody.
Yeah.
At the time at the BFA, we had more interaction we had had, or I had had personally, with members than ever before. And from speaking to them, found that actually so many, their role as a franchisor was evolving. So they were starting to having to support their franchisees on such a personal basis with mental health challenges, some really significant, some sort of fairly low key, I guess. But there was a really overwhelming sense of not knowing if they were doing it right, saying the right thing, doing the right thing, doing enough, doing it safely, and just having the confidence to do it. And I grew up with both my parents working in mental health. I'm quite open that I have OCD, so I'm really familiar with that kind of world. So decided to do something about it, and that was about 4 years ago.
Is it 4 years?
Yeah.
Wow, that's gone so quick.
I know. Really quick. Yeah, I can't keep calling myself a brand new business.
No, you're not. You're like established now.
Yeah, I should know what I'm doing. Yeah.
None of us ever know what we're doing.
No, constant winging it. Yeah.
So in terms of Cinder, how did you come up with the concept of what you wanted to do for franchises?
So I had actually done the course myself. As a learner, I did it kind of off my own back, paid for it myself, because I think it's so important. Your workplace has such a massive impact on you and your personal life, but also your performance at work. You know, it's not this nice, soft thing to do when you have extra budget. Actually, it makes a massive difference to how you perform at work. And so I did that course myself and thought, actually, this is something that we need in the industry. Anyone who's in it knows how weird and wonderful it is. Like, there's so many nuances, isn't there? So I think actually if I can combine my franchise knowledge of about 10 years with that.
You had that connection through the BFA to the franchise industry. And that's obviously helped you to make a lot of connections now and to like speak to franchisors quite regularly. Is that something that you've actively maintained and developing as you've gone along?
Having those connections?
Yeah, and building on that.
Yeah, I think so. Like for me, I've realised more and more about how, like, people talk about being like your authentic self all the time, don't they? It's become like such a phrase. But I just think I haven't got time to be anything else. I haven't got mental capacity to do anything else. I'm also a franchisee. I've got a toddler. I help to look after my dad. I haven't got the mental space to not have like meaningful connections. And I think I believe in what I do so much because from like anecdotal feedback people that have done the training and things like that, I know what difference it makes. And I think after 4 years I'm finally confident enough to say that it's good and that it does make a difference. And so I think for me it's just I believe in what I do and that it's needed in the industry. So on that I'm actually launching a survey next week which is the very first national franchise wellbeing survey.
That's good.
So it's going to be for all franchisees, franchisors throughout the UK to get some really hard data on what the landscape looks like and how we can use all of that to shape future support in franchising.
That's really good.
So,
what are you hoping that will show?
So I think a lot of the challenges, to be completely transparent, that I come up against is franchisors or franchisees really caring about their network, but not necessarily recognising mental health and wellbeing as a business priority. But my, not just belief, because I've actually seen it happen from being a franchisee myself, if you are thriving as a person, your business will as well, hand in hand.
Yeah.
You know, like a franchisor could invest in the very best social media training, but actually if you as an individual are experiencing anxiety or low mood or just challenges with mindset, you're not going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know if I've gone off on a tangent there, have I? I can't remember.
I don't think you have. I slightly got distracted. So you mentioned like you've seen the impact that the training has on the franchises. Do you want to give us a couple of examples of what you've seen, the benefit to the franchise?
Yeah, so one of the main things that I now focus on is supporting new franchisees when they're onboarding into a franchise, because everybody in franchising knows that there is that roller coaster. You know, when you decide to join a franchise, you're so excited, you think it's going to be incredible, then you actually pay for it, and it's terrifying. You do your training, so you go back up and you're excited, then you've done it and actually have to do it on your own, and maybe for a few months, maybe longer, it's hard. You're not earning money, but you still have to pay your mortgage. It's terrifying. Then you get your first, sale or whatever it is, and you go right back up. You go right back up there, and it's such a roller coaster. So to be able to manage and navigate that is really challenging. So for me, it's all about actually empowering a franchisee literally from day one of signing, so that they've got that self-awareness and the skills to be able to, the ups and downs are still going to happen, but to be able to manage them so they feel less extreme, and then actually that way they can focus on their business rather than getting stuck in this like decision paralysis or lack of confidence or whatever it is. They can manage it. They've got that resilience to do it.
Yeah. And obviously you've mentioned that you're a franchisee as well, so you've got that first-hand experience of going through those emotions and the challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. So decided to start a franchise when my daughter was 6 months old, which was potentially stupid, but it's gone well so far, so it's okay. And that's in children's wellbeing for primary schools. So all kind of ties in quite nicely, and the idea there is that we hope that actually giving children skills when they're so young, actually they can use and build on those life skills, so that maybe the stuff we're doing for adults doesn't need to be done as much.
That's good. That's really important. Jen, why do you think the conversation around mental health is as open as it is now compared to 10 years or so?
It's a good question, and I think I would argue, is it as open? I think people are more accepting to talk about it. We're talking about it now, and this wasn't a thing in franchising a few years ago. But I think there are still a lot of people that aren't talking about it. I'm still speaking to franchisors who are losing franchisees to either suicide, which I think is even for what I do, I still find shocking, and I think it's obviously devastating, or people are on a fairly regular basis losing franchisees who are citing mental health as part of the reason why they're exiting. So they're either selling their business or actually just walking away from a business that they could sell and is thriving. They don't need to from a business point of view, but personally they just can't do it anymore. And that's such a loss for the whole industry, franchisors, franchisees, brand, all sorts, and it shouldn't be happening. So I think it is better. Social media is probably part of that, people being open and having a different mindset to it, but I think we're not as far as we think we are.
Okay, that's quite important for people to hear that, I think.
I think so.
Yeah. So in terms of, I'm going to ask you a two-pronged question.
Okay.
In terms of a franchisor who maybe sees one of their franchisees is struggling, what advice would you give to them? And for a franchisee who may be struggling, what advice would you give to them?
So for a franchisor, I would think about what signs are you seeing? What's the change in behaviour, the change in language? What is that? So the most important thing we can do to spot early signs is to notice a change from someone's baseline. So we're all really different, aren't we, in temperament, punctuality, mindset, all sorts. We have a base. So what changes are you seeing? Are they because of a specific event, or do you not know? And ultimately to have the conversation. So that is easier said than done, I think.
Yeah, I was just going to say that can be quite hard to do.
Easier said than done, but I think it's creating that open atmosphere, an open environment where it's safe to talk about it from day one. It's so important, because if you haven't got that, then you're not going to have the conversations. But also having that insight that as a franchisor, no matter how amazing you set it out, you still might not be the person that your franchisee feels open to talk to. Because some franchisees have this employee mindset still, even though it's not an employee-employer relationship, they still have that. And so for whatever reason, whether it's like actual stigma or whether it's perceived worry about that, they won't talk to their franchisor sometimes, even if they're the most like caring, open, genuine person. So I think actually having an outlet for them, someone else, not necessarily me, but someone or something external that the franchisee can draw on, so that they've always got the opportunity to have some sort of resource. And then franchisee. So franchisee, I think, is arm yourself with knowledge and tools that work for you. Like, there isn't a one size fits all. For some people, you know, running might be amazing for their well-being. For others, they couldn't think of anything worse. So it's really about taking the time to, I don't want to say a cheesy cliche, but get to know yourself. You know, what things spark anxiety or low mood or stress. Track that. Make it part of your business as much as sales is a priority. Because if you're not there, your business isn't going to function. So make sure that is a priority. And if you see the signs, do something as much as you can early on. Because it's much easier to make a difference when you spot the really early signs than when you keep saying that you'll look after yourself once X and Y, Z is done in your business.
I know, like, one of my things is, like, when I start to feel overwhelmed in my head, that shows in my kitchen. So, like, I leave pots and I can't do stuff. So I know, for me, I've learned to recognise that that's a sign that I'm starting to feel overwhelmed with stuff.
That's
so
a great insight. So then I can
kind of take a step back and be like, okay, what's going on? Clear the clutter, and then go
absolutely.
again. So it is important to understand yourself and to know what, you know, what's my body telling me, what's my brain telling me right now.
That's the thing. And like recognizing that a mental health challenge doesn't necessarily mean a diagnosable condition. It could just be feeling unclear, not being able to make decisions very easily. Being not as productive. All of that is a challenge. It doesn't mean it's necessarily like a diagnosable condition, but it means that you're not at the top of your game.
Exactly. It's I could talk to you about this so much.
You won't get rid of me.
That's fine. So I just want to raise, like, whenever I speak to a woman in the podcast, I like to understand that aspect of being a woman in the industry and the support network that we've got. Obviously, you being involved in the BFA and the EWIB and EWIF. What is it about being a woman in this industry that is kind of, that you are finding?
So far, my experience has been really good, to be honest. I personally don't feel that I've felt a big challenge. I think being a female and doing something that is seen as a feminine area, which mental health and feelings or emotion is often seen as, which is ridiculous, but that's another podcast probably. Sometimes I think I feel that I have to prove myself a little bit more and prove that it's a business issue, not just something that's like soft and fluffy because I'm, you know, a woman. But on the whole, it's been really positive. Like, whenever I'm booked for someone's conference, I've had people say to me that I can bring my baby. which is amazing. You wouldn't. I don't think you would get that in many other industries.
No.
I've had people offer to hold my daughter while, when she was a baby. I did my first ever conference talk from having her when she was only 12 weeks old, and so, I had people offering to hold her so that I could get up on stage, and that's amazing. And I've been to conferences where there have been prams, and it's been not just tolerated but encouraged.
Yeah.
Which I think is amazing, because it's really hard to run a business and have a kid. Childcare is wildly expensive.
Yeah.
Even with the government funding, it's still a fortune.
Yeah.
So to be in an industry where actually you can make it work, I think I found invaluable.
That's really nice to hear that element of because I spoke to Vicky Mittman on one of an earlier podcast, and she has grown up in the industry. Like, her parents ran the franchise; they're really well established. Everyone knows who Vicky is.
Yeah.
And it's like she loves the franchise industry because she's grown up through it.
Yeah.
So the fact that your daughter is part of what you're doing, not that she's going to suddenly run her own franchise or any of that kind of thing, but she's seeing her mum thriving and feeling fulfilled in what she's doing.
I hope so, yeah. I think that's what I want her to, whatever she decides to do, I want her to know that she can do it. She's got the options. And part of what I do is that hopefully one day, whatever field she works in, whether it's franchising, whatever it is, that actually she's working in a workplace where you as an individual are accepted and supported.
Yeah.
So even if, it makes a slight difference to the working industry that she's got, then job done.
Yeah, that's really good. It's so good. Jen, for anyone that wants to kind of have you work alongside them with their franchisees or get support from you, how do they go about doing that?
So I would say the best step is just to have a chat first, because every franchise is so different in terms of network demographic, priority, budgets, everything. So, and I appreciate that from working in franchising for so long. So it's not an off-the-shelf thing. I have specific services that people can use, but it's more of a pick and mix thing. So how can we make it work for what you need? So that would be the best thing, is to just go on my website, book a call, and then we can go from there.
Yeah. And I know from experience, I've done the course, and we had you into Coconut as well to do a workshop, so I know how beneficial it is.
Thank
and
you.
Talking about the stress bucket and all that kind of we still talk about that at Coconut.
Good, I'm glad.
It's really valuable what you offer.